Ladies and gentlemen,
Hey,
Mr. Scott Snyder.
how are you guys? Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here, Scott. I know you're super busy,
Oh,
and
it's okay.
thank you for taking the time to join us tonight to talk about your new comic, which I didn't bring up when we talked about other comics because I was hoping you could join us.
Yeah, sure.
Nocterra.
Yes,
Nocterra
that
is
was
here.
today. Thank you so much for the support. Yeah, no, sorry. I was picking my kid up from a play date, and he what's the kid? It's a kid he goes to school with, and we're in the same kind of pod. And he had lost his iPad, and we found his iPad, and then his Switch, and then he couldn't find the rubber covering to the Joy-Con, so it was nothing glamorous whatsoever. It was all the exciting life of a comic writer, right?
I'm with you, man. I've got 3 boys myself, so I've been down that road. But now
Yeah.
my oldest are 21 and 19, and my youngest is 11. So
Oh, you got a good spread. Same here.
yeah. So yeah, I know you're super busy with the kids and this launch with Nocterra. I'm sure you've been on social media all day and possibly doing some other interviews. So, give us the elevator pitch. Give our customers the pitch for Nocterra.
Yeah, sure. Well, so it's a book. It's a big ongoing. It's for me and Tony Daniel, who's the artist on Batman for a number of years, a bunch of other stuff, and Tomeo Mori, who's the current colorist on Batman and everything. And it imagines that tomorrow a darkness falls over the earth that changes every living organism that stays in it unlit too long into a monster called a shade. And so the main portion of the book takes place 13 years after this darkness, which they call the big PM, like AM and PM in the book, has fallen. So it's 13 PM, and it follows a woman named Val Riggs, who's trying to protect her brother in the dangerous kind of reality that this darkness has created. And she's a trucker. She's a ferryman in this world. That's what they call people that transport people from outpost to outpost. And all these outposts are like lit up by spotlights and whatever lights they can find, from fire to fluorescent to neon to everything. So it's a lot of fun. It's like big, high octane horror. It's a like heart on your sleeve, fists out, kind of bone crunching, full throttle, nonstop kind of book. So it's big fun for us to work on. It's personal to us too. Tony has daughters. He's kind of keeping in mind when he writes it in terms of creating a heroine that speaks to them and a lot of the things that some of the things that she's overcome in terms of her skepticism about the nature of things and human nature itself come from, I think, my own anxieties in ways and things that I worry about for my kids. So we've put a lot of heart into it. And yet at the same time, we want it to be something that you can read and just be like, hell yeah, this is killer fun. And I'm doing a bunch of indie stuff this year. It's my year away from superheroes for a little bit. Before I go back, I have some projects lined up at DC I'm excited about. But the fun for me was to be able to, instead of kind of putting my big superhero stuff or big epic kind of bombastic stuff at DC, and then my stuff that kind of push different boundaries for me creatively and creator on, I could take all of it and put it in one place. And so this book kind of marries a lot of the intimacy and personal dark stuff of my creator on with the big muscled, kind of out of control, propulsive qualities of the superhero stuff. So it's huge fun for us. We love it. I really, really can't say enough good things about the team, and I cannot thank people enough today for turning out the way they did. I mean, you never know if it's like your time when I've had a good run, but when you do a book, even if you love it and you think it leans into all this stuff that you love, whether or not this is the one where they're going to be like, enough of this dude, enough of these guys, like, and that's totally fine when it happens. But it was nice to see people enthusiastic about it today, and it meant the world to both of us. And it's a book that we're really, really excited about. It's kind of like a lot of the books I'm doing this year. I'm pushing different. I want to push different creative boundaries for myself and try things you haven't seen from me. And this one is more like everything that you kind of expect from the two of us, but done instead of trying to subvert expectations or do something that gets away from your expectations. It kind of leans in and is like, yes, this is what you expected, but we're going to hopefully deliver it better than you'd hoped and just exceed expectation rather than, like defy it in any way.
Yeah, no, and I think you totally did it. My wife is in off camera here. She monitors our Facebook comments while we're chatting, but it was her pick of the week. It was my pick of the week. She didn't start reading comics until we got together 25 years ago. And man, I feel old. I'm talking about 25 years of marriage, old kids. But Tony Dano's artwork on this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And your words there are fantastic as well. And then I think the thing that really clinched it for me is you have kind of a personal letter at the end of the book that talks about a little bit of your inspiration for it, and I don't think I'm spoiling anything, and stop me if you don't want me to talk about it.
No, so you spoil whatever you want.
Well, you see on page 3. No. So when you were younger, you had this fear of the dark, and you said you started to notice one of your sons kind of battling with some of those same fears, and then kind of the light went off. Well, no pun intended. And and came up with the idea, with the concept for Nocterra. But I think that that's probably something that you've noticed as well as a writer. You're a different person now than when you were working on Court of the Owls or when you were first getting into comics. Being a parent changes the way that you look at the world and the way that you look at your life. Yeah. And I think maybe folks are going to see some of that in Nocterra, that are parents. I mean, I could totally relate to what you were saying, but also relate to the characters in the book that essentially become orphans, or that do become orphans, and they only have each other to lean on. Yeah. So is that an accurate statement that you've kind of evolved?
Yeah, I mean, you can go back and look and trace through my work, like Severed and the very early stuff like Detective. You can see I had a kid at that time, but it was more like all the stuff that I had bottled up that I wanted to write about, that was about me and my own fears about myself, not living up to things, and about, not knowing where I belonged. All that stuff's in Court of Owls, all that stuff that someone teaching you, like humility about you're not good enough, you're not, things are bigger than you, you have to accept, all that stuff is in those. And then by the time I kind of settled into the idea that I wasn't going to get kicked off everything, and I had more than one arc to do on them, I started to really explore more of where I was in life, I think, at that moment, as opposed to where I had been a year or two before I started writing and translating that stuff in. And so with Death of the Family and with Wytches, around those same times, you can see I'm really talking about, again, fear of parenthood. Joker is like, oh, you don't want that family, you don't want to be old and slow, you want to go back to being like we were before. And Wytches is it's obvious on the surface, the fears of parenthood. But after that, 0 Year in 2014, 2015, you can see everything kind of switch, where I start writing more for my kids. 0 Year is very much an origin. It's my favorite. That and Last Night. I love Court of Owls and everything, but that one is probably my favorite, along with Last Night, because it was so written for my kids as an origin that was hopefully confronting some of the stuff they were afraid of, but translated into like comic book lunacy. So, gun violence and terrorism and superstorms and apocalyptic imagery, all that stuff's in there. War, like that there's meant to be recombined in like a crazy punk maximalist kind of way, and to even redesign Batman to look like he's young and different in theirs. And you can see that filter into all the work from there forward, where I'm more writing about my fears for them and about the world than I am about myself, my own, and Nocterra is 100% that kind of a project where it's literally written with my kids in mind. Like you said, it came from watching my middle son struggle with a lot of the same anxiety that I had as a kid, and have it kind of manifest itself in this fear of the dark. That's, not just a normal fear of the dark or a, kind of a, hey, you wake up and you're scared, but like a real panic attack fear of the dark. And so taking that apart and saying, well, my way of dealing with my fears as I got older as a kid was always to watch horror movies about them and be in a space where it would get explored and then kind of resolved? And what if I write a book that's literally about the dark being just as scary or scarier than you imagined, and then having a character that leads you through that bravely? And so that's where it came from. And then, it's the darkness that separates us and makes us unrecognizable to each other. There's certainly that in the zeitgeist in many ways, many layers of like the moment right now, from, the personal to the political to the cultural, I think. So it felt like the right book now. And I hope you can see with each of these books, they are written to explore very different creative avenues, but they're all personal in that regard. And they explore different things that I think about more about the future for my children than I do for, about myself generally anymore. It's more like, I am afraid of this thing. Let me write about it because I'm worried about it for them. And I want them to be brave in the face of it or think of it in a certain way. So Nocterra is also written very much with my 14-year-old in mind and Tony's teenage daughter, or almost teenage daughter and teenage daughter in mind. Because they're at the age now where they're exploring things through manga and through comics and through digital and webtoon and anime and all this stuff, Studio Ghibli, all these things that they're into. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I want to write something that my 14-year-old could be like, that's badass, that's cool, that's fun. But it's actually kind of touching on the things that he might not even realize he's going through, being isolated, feeling alone, all those things that you see on a day-to-day basis as a parent in these crazy times. So yeah, it's a book that marries a lot of stuff that's kind of like, we want it to be like Saturday morning cartoons, but for adults, like R-rated. But then at the same time, I want it to be, I hope that you can see that we're pretty passionate about what it's about and why it matters to us. So it's kind of one of those magic intersections you hit once in a while where you're like, oh, this has everything that we like to do in one place. So,
well, I want to be very respectful of your time. Do we have time for one or two quick questions?
Yeah, sure. Hit me, and then I'll take off. I told my wife 8:00 I'd be back in to help with the baby.
All right.
1-year-old too.
We actually had two questions, but it's the same question, and I don't know if you'll have the answer to this. But two people want to know about the second omnibus for your run on Batman.
Yes, they are doing one. When they did the first one, the whole idea was to do a second one that included the rest of the work that Greg and I did. So I know that is in the works. Yes. Fantastic. Well, I've got a minute left. And they were like, do we include Metal and Last Night in the first one? But it was going to take too long and get too wonky. So they were like, no, we'll wait, and then we'll include all of this other stuff, metal and death metal and Last Night on Earth.
If all of that was in one volume, it would be like ginormous. It just would not work. Mm-hmm. So you did mention you've got some stuff you're excited about at DC coming up down the road. Is there anything that you want to talk about or plug, creator owned or DC wise?
I'll plug the only book that I've announced so far, because I really want to announce like all my creator owned stuff together. I want to do kind of an expo for Best Jacket and be more. I want to wait till I have a bunch together to be able to say here's some of the stuff we're doing and do it in kind of waves in the spring into the summer, late spring, summer. But we announced a Chain with Ariella Cristantina, totally different kind of book. It's like, from what I've done, it's about the end of the world, but it's a claustrophobic kind of Animal Farm kind of take with these characters that are locked in this spot together in remote Alaska. It's one of the only safe places while the world is falling apart, and they're unsure what to do with their resources in terms of them being safe. So it's this big, it's a real human drama. It's like a play, but you'll see, it's got like really beautiful set pieces and things from flashbacks and all that. So totally different sort of book. Really happy with it. She's amazing. Go follow her. And then you can go out and find people that that I'm probably working with doing posting things that are from books together. So I'm going to save my talking about it till later. But the DC stuff, I can't give that away either. But it's a project that I've been planning for a long time. Like a couple of projects that one of them is Nightwing based, and one of them is but go pick up Tom Taylor in 2 weeks. I messed that up and said it was today. online because I read it 2 weeks ago, so I was like, oh yeah, I thought it was this, but he's great. Bruno is great. They're amazing. And hats off also to James Tynan, and who's killing it with my buddy Jorge on Batman, and Tomeo, and Josh Williamson. Infinite Frontier is going to be amazing. Ram V, Swamp Thing, all of that. Mike Perkins. So many good things right now. Joelle murdering it on Wonder Woman, so great. Becky also is going to kill it with Michael, and everyone. So very happy with that whole company, and Marie's, who's one of my dearest friends, like direction that she's taking it in. But my stuff, one of them is that, and one of them is a big project I can't talk about. But there's a lot of, like, if you read Infinite Frontier today or yesterday, there's hints about where we're headed. Like the stuff that Josh is building in Infinite Frontier, the series that was just announced, that will lead to some of the stuff that I'm doing and be a lot of fun too. Like we built a whole architecture that's like, you can take some time off and then you come back and then blow it up together in a fun way. So
that is fantastic. Well, we are over our limit. You are a great hype person for DC Comics, and it's clear the affection that you share with the other writers and artists over there. The Infinite Frontier stuff, what I've read so far, is fantastic, and it really is for folks that are looking for a fresh take on some DC characters, some energetic storytelling. DC is nailing it with Infinite Frontiers. So absolutely. If people want to keep up with you on social media, what is the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, well, I'm going to dive in and do more of a Best Jacket. I have a Best Jacket website, but I'm going to do a real revamp for the spring when we start getting closer to announcing and stuff. But right now I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I don't really use Facebook as much anymore. It's not the best place, but I should never say this, but my DMs are open on on Twitter. I obviously, like, when I get something from someone I don't follow, it puts it in this like unrecognized message thing, which I don't look at very, very often because I get a lot of things from people I do know. But I do try and look at it. I do try and get back to people. I don't always succeed, but you can reach me there. I'm not hard to find. You know what I mean? And I do try and respond. So.
Absolutely. And you responded to me, and I thank you for that. And I do have to thank you. I think I've done this once in person at San Diego Comic-Con in 2012, but you actually called our shop once after hours. I don't know if you remember this.
I do. Yeah, when Metal came out? Was that?
No, it was Batman Annual #2. It was a Mr. Freeze story.
Oh, wow.
And your Batman Annual. That's what it was. So what was that? 2014,
That was even before that, I think. That was because that was the beginning of the New 52. We did those annuals.
Yeah.
It must have been like 2012.
So we missed your call because the call came in after hours, but we had your voicemail. I've since deleted it, but you were giving your son a bath. And
that's the kid that's now 14.
There we go. Well, hopefully it was a long while ago, but but yeah, it was so amazing that you took the time to reach out to us and thank us, because one of our team members and I did a video review or we tweeted it out. I don't even remember how we talked about it, but you found it and you took the time to call us and thank us. And I've never forgotten that. You're just an amazing guy. I'm so thankful for the time you spent with us tonight. I know our customers and viewers are thankful too. And everybody needs to pick up Nocterra and check it out.
Thanks, brother. And yeah, no, let's not wait till I have another kid who's, another 12 years or whatever it is. So I would love it if we make it a more regular thing.
Hey man, I am up for that. And I'll definitely reach out, or you reach out to me. If anytime you want to promote something, you've got free time on
Great. Like I said, the late spring, really early summer will be a busy time. So I'll certainly hit you up.
Fantastic. Scott, Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
All right. Good night, you guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
you.